At 10:14, a single missile appears on the USS Abraham Lincoln's Spy-6 radar, and the crew of the most powerful carrier in the world begins what they believe is a standard engagement. They are wrong about what it is. They are wrong about everything. The contact is bearing 047, range 190 kilometers, sea skimming, speed 890 km/h, altitude 9 m above the water surface. The Aegis combat system begins building an intercept solution immediately. One contact, clean geometry, established procedure. In the Abraham Lincoln's electronic warfare suite, Chief Petty Officer James Nash looks at the missile's guidance seeker signature on his passive sensor display and notices something that takes him 4 seconds to process. The seeker is open, not locked, not narrowed onto the Abraham Lincoln's hull signature. The way every anti-ship missile seeker he has ever watched narrows in terminal approach. Wide aperture scanning collecting emissions from every system in the formation simultaneously. The Spy-6 radar frequency, the Aegis fire control signal, the electronic warfare jamming frequencies, the Phalanx CW targeting radar, the M6 uplink protocol. A missile in terminal attack mode does not scan, it locks, it commits, it narrows everything it has onto the target. Because in terminal attack mode, there is only one thing that matters, and that thing is the hull signature directly ahead. This missile is not in terminal attack mode. This missile is doing something Nash has never seen a missile do before in 14 years off-watching guidance systems on passive sensors. It is taking notes. He picks up the circuit to the Combat Information Center at 0915. The seeker on this contact is in wide aperture collection mode. It is not targeting the ship. It is collecting our defensive emissions. It needs someone to listen to me right now. Tactical Action Officer Lieutenant Commander Hassan, OAE, has 2 SM-6 interceptors already climbing toward the contact and a fire control solution running clean. He looks at the contact in his display. One missile standard geometry. The engagement is running exactly as it should. He tells Nash the engagement is active and asks him to stand by. At 0916, the first M6 reaches its intercept point. The Abwadi-2 executes a 1.9 degrees course correction and the interceptor detonates in empty air. The second SM-6 launches on an updated solution at 0916. The missile executes another correction 2.3 degrees this time, and the second interceptor finds nothing. In the electronic warfare suite, Nash watches both corrections on his passive display and understands immediately what he is seeing. The missile did not execute those corrections to survive. It executed them to study. Each correction was the minimum movement required to make the SM-6 miss, not maximum evasion, minimum evasion, while keeping the seeker in wide aperture collection mode, long enough to record the complete SM-6 intercept geometry, the exact approach angle, the exact terminal phase, the exact moment of detonation relative to the missile's position. It was letting the SM-6s miss on purpose while it watched how they worked. Nash reports this at 0917. He tells OAE the missile deliberately allowed both SM-6s to miss. She tells him the seeker is still in collection mode. He tells him the missile is not attacking the ship. OAE activates the broadband jamming suite at 0917. The Abwadi-2 registers the jamming signal, logs the frequency, and continues inbound. The jamming has no effect. Nash watches the missile log, the jamming frequency on his passive display. It is recording everything, every frequency, every signal, every defensive action the formation takes is being cataloged in real time by a guidance system specifically designed to learn. At 9:19, the Phalanx SEIC activates as the contact enters its engagement envelope. The fire control radar locks onto the Abu Madi-2 at 3.1 nautical miles. The missile registers a Phalanx radar frequency, logs it, and executes a terminal maneuver. Not towed feet the Phalanx. Nash can see this on his display, but to force the Phalanx tow fire at a specific geometry while the missile seeker records the gun's traverse rate, firing cycle, and round dispersion pattern. The Phalanx fires. The burst reaches the intercept point. The Abwadi-2 has already moved 14 m to the left of the burst center. Not because it got lucky, because it calculated exactly where the burst would be and positioned itself 14 m outside it. The missile flies through the formation past the Abraham Lincoln, past the escorts, into open ocean on bearing 267. The contact disappears from the tactical display at 0922. In the Combat Information Center, OAE marks the engagement complete. Possible miss or possible self-destruct beyond radar range. Battle stations begin standing down. The tactical display shows nothing inbound. The crew breathes. Nash does not breathe. He is watching bearing 267 on his passive sensors. The bearing the missile flew into the direction it went when it passed through the formation. And he is thinking about everything the seeker collected during 8 minutes and 11 seconds of wide aperture scanning. The SM-6 intercept geometry, both approaches, both detonation points, both missed distances, the jamming frequencies, every frequency the formation's electronic warfare suite transmitted, the Phalanx fire control radar frequency, the gun's traverse rate, the firing cycle, the round dispersion pattern, the Spy-6 radar emission profile, the Aegis Fire Control Uplink Protocol. The formation's complete electronic order of battle. Everything Iran needed to know to defeat every defensive system on the Abraham Lincoln collected in one pass by transmitted back to the launch platform in real time. And now the missile knows everything, and somewhere on bearing 267, it is turning around. Nash picks up the circuit to OAE at 0923. The missile is coming back. It collected our defensive emissions on the first pass. It is going to execute a second attack using everything it just learned. It will be back on radar in approximately 60 to 90 seconds. Every intercept we attempt on the second pass will fail because the missile already knows how we intercept. I need weapons free on the launch platform bearing 031. I have the position. I have had it since 0914. OAE looks at his display. Empty. Nothing inbound. Battle station standing down. A chief petty officer telling him a missile that just flew through the formation and disappeared is coming back. He tells Nash his assessment has been logged and asks him to stand by. Nash looks at his display at bearing 267 at the passive sensor readings that tell him the Abu Mahdi 2's data link is still transmitting, still connected to its launch platform, still receiving position updates on the Abraham Lincoln, still active, still coming. He starts building something. Not a jamming solution. The missile has already shifted away from every jamming frequency the formation transmitted on the first pass. He cannot jam what it already knows to avoid. Something different, something the missile doesn't know to avoid because it hasn't seen it yet. The Abu Mahdi 2's data link, the signal connecting it to its launch platform throughout its entire flight, operates on a specific encrypted frequency. The same frequency it used to transmit its first pass reconnaissance data. The same frequency it is now using to receive real-time position updates on the Abraham Lincoln for the second pass. Nash had identified that frequency at 0914 and 33 seconds, 11 seconds after the contact appeared on radar. He had been building a spoofed position signal in that frequency for the last 9 minutes, not jamming, replacing a false transmission carrying false coordinates for the Abraham Lincoln 600M to the left of where the carrier actually is, formatted to pass every authentication check. The missile's guidance computer would run against it. He needed one thing, for the missile to come back so could transmit into an active data link. At 0923 and 47 seconds, the contact reappears on the SPY-6 radar bearing 267. Inbound. Range 160 kilometers, speed 890 kilometers per hour. Coming back. And now the seeker is in a row. Now it is locked. Now it is fully committed to the Abraham Lincoln shell signature with a targeting solution built from 8 minutes and 11 seconds offers past data collection. Not scanning anymore, not taking notes, attacking with everything it learned. OAE looks at this display. The contact is real. It ice-inbound. His battle stations are half stood down and his crew is reassuming positions and his fire control solutions need to be rebuilt from scratch for a contact coming from the opposite direction. He authorizes 4 SM-6 interceptors at 0924. The fire control solutions build in 31 seconds, and the interceptors launch from USS Bulkley at 0924. The Abu Mahdi 2 receives the SM-6 launch data from its guidance system and executes the first evasive maneuver, note a random correction. The exact correction calculated from the SM-6 intercept geometry it observed and recorded on the first pass. It knows the SM-6 approach angle. It knows the terminal phase timing. It moves to the specific position that the SM-6 fire control solution cannot compensate for in the time available. The first SM-6 detonates 380 m from the missile, the second 290 m, the third 140 m closer, but the missile has already calculated that 140 m is outside the fragmentation lethal radius and moved accordingly. The fourth SM-6 is the closest yet, detonating 61 m from the airframe. But the Abu Mahdi 2 had calculated the fourth intercept geometry from the first 3 and executed a final correction that placed it 61 m outside the burst pattern for SM-6. For misses, each one closer than the last, but none close enough because the missile had seen how SM-6 work and built specific answers for each one. OS activates the broadband jamming suite at 0926. The Abu Mahdi 2 ISIL-ready operating on a frequency outside every band. The jamming suite transmitted on the first pass. The jamming suite floods frequencies the missile abandoned 9 minutes ago. The missile doesn't register the jamming ATL. The failink activates at 0927 as the contact enters its engagement envelope at 3.1 nautical miles. The fire control radar locks onto the Abu Mahdi 2. The missile knows this radar.it recorded the frequency, the traverse rate, and the firing cycle on the first pass. It executes the terminal maneuver it calculated from that data, moving faster than the gun can traverse between acquisition and firing, positioning itself in the specific geometry where the Phalan's round dispersion pattern cannot achieve a lethal hit. The falank fires at 0927. The burst reaches the intercept point. The Abu Mahdi 2 is 17 m outside the lethal fragmentation radius, not by chance, by calculation. 2 minutes and 11 seconds to impact. Every conventional defense exhausted by every intercept failed not because the missile was faster or harder to track, But because the missile had already seen every defense once and built a specific answer to each one during 8 minutes and 11 seconds of first-pass reconnaissance, the Combat Information Center is silent. Rear Admiral James Carver looks at his tactical display for 4 seconds. Then he picks up the all-hands circuit. All hands brace for impact. Nash transmits at 0928. He does not ask for authorization. There is no time for authorization. He transmits the spoof-fed position signal on the ABWADI-2's data link frequency. The false coordinates he has been building for 9 minutes and 4 seconds directly into the missile's active data link connection. The transmission lasts 0.4 seconds. It carries one piece of information, the Abraham Lincoln's position, a 600 m to the left of where the carrier actually is. The ABWADI-2 receives the updated position at 0928 and does exactly what it was designed to do. It trusted its data link. Its guidance computer processed the new coordinates, calculated the course correction required to shift its impact point to the new position, and executed at Mach 0.8 with 90 seconds to impact. 600 m of lateral displacement requires a course correction of 4.1 degree. The missile banks hard to port away from the Abraham Lincoln toward the false position Nash's spoofed signal had placed in the ocean 600 meters off the carrier's port bow. In the Combat Information Center, OAE watches the contact curve away from the formation on his tactical display. He stands completely still for 3 seconds. At 0929, the Abu Mahdi-2 impacted the Arabian Sea 600 m off the Abraham Lincoln's port bow. The warhead detonated on water impact. The explosion sent a column of white water 380 feet into the air. The pressure wave expanded outward through the water and hit the Abraham Lincoln shoal simultaneously with the pressure wave from the air blast. A double impact that threw crew members off their feet in compartments 400 m from the impact point cracked 3 windows on the bridge and caused a momentary power fluctuation in the forward compartments 600 m. The closest the ABWADI-2 came to the hull. It spent 8 minutes studying. Nothing touched the carrier. In the Combat Information Center, nobody spoke for 5 seconds. Then Carver picked up the circuit to Nash's position. "Chief Nash, walk me through what just happened." Nash looked at his passive sensor display at the wide aperture seeker signature he had identified at 0914 and 33 seconds at data link frequency he had been collecting since the moment the contact appeared at the spoof position signal had been building for 9 minutes and 4 seconds while 4 SM-6 missed and the jamming suite found nothing to jam and the Phalons fired into empty air. "Sir, the missile's first pass was a reconnaissance mission. It collected our complete defensive emissions profile and transmitted the data to its launch platform in real time. The second passes that data to defeat every intercept we attempted. I identified the data link frequency on the first pass and fed it false position coordinates 90 seconds before impact." Carver was quiet for 4 seconds. "Then how long did you have the launch platform position since 9:14? "Sir, I have had it for 24 minutes. Carver did not respond to that for a moment. Then he picked up the strike authorization circuit. The Abu Mahdi 2-foot launch platform had been transmitting continuously on the data link frequency since 0914, receiving first-pass reconnaissance data, sending second-pass position updates, maintaining the connection that Nash had been triangulating for 24 minutes and 11 seconds. The position was fixed to within 14 meters on a platform that had not moved since the missile launched. Iranian mobile launch doctrine: shoot and relocate immediately. The platform's crew had been trained to move the moment the missile cleared the rail. They had not moved because they were receiving and processing 8 minutes of first-pass reconnaissance data in real time, and the data was too valuable to interrupt be relocating. They had stayed to watch their missile work. 2 FA-18s released 4 GBU-31 JDAIM guided bombs from 28,000 feet at 0932. Nash's targeting coordinates refined across 24 minutes of continuous triangulation to 14 m accuracy loaded into each weapon's GPS guidance system at the moment of release. The first bomb impacted at 0933 and 44 seconds. The second 3 seconds later, the third and fourth found the data link transmission equipment and the targeting systems that had spent months developing the ABWADI-2's reconnaissance attack doctrine. The launch platform, the crew and Iran's ability to execute another reconnaissance attack from that position ceased to exist at 0933 and 51 seconds. Nash transmitted the ABWADI-2's data link frequency to every EA-18G Growler in theater at 0934. 4 Growlers, each one immediately began transmitting focused spoof position signals on that frequency across its entire operational sector. Every ABWI to Iran had left that relied on the same data link for position updates was now receiving false coordinates. Every second pass attack Iran had planned against U.S. naval assets in the theater was now going to miss by exactly as far as the false positions placed their targets. Iran's most terrifying missile permanently blinded by the same frequency Nash had identified 11 seconds after the contact appeared on radar. In the electronic warfare suite, Dane Nash wrote his engagement log in 2 sentences. "Iran fired a missile that studied us on the first pass and came back knowing how to defeat everything we had. We fed it the wrong address. Iran fired its most terrifying missile at USS Abraham Lincoln, a weapon that didn't TTRY to hit the carrier on its first pass. A weapon that flew through the formation, collected everything it needed to know, turned around, and came back with a complete answer to every defense the most advanced carrier strike group in the world could deploy. It defeated 4 SM-6 interceptors. It defeated broadband jamming. It defeated the phalanx. It came back knowing exactly how to beat everything. And it almost did. It missed by 600 m because a chief petty officer noticed the seeker was scanning instead of locking 11 seconds after the contact appeared on radar, and spent 9 minutes and 4 seconds building a solution for an attack that hadn't started yet. America's response blinded every OBW Iran has left permanently. And the launch platform that spent months developing the most sophisticated reconnaissance attack ever attempted against a U.S. carrier had 24 minutes and 11 seconds to escape what was coming. It stayed to watch its missile work. That was the last mistake I'd ever made. And the lesson Thran took home from the Arabian Sea that morning was the one at least wanted to learn, that the most dangerous sensor on the most powerful carrier in the world isn't the system that tracks the missile. It is the chief petty officer who understood what the missile was doing before it finished doing.